Hello and welcome to this video. And in this video, I'll be sharing with you how to level up your ChatGPT game with better prompts. Everybody's using ChatGPT at this point. That's an open secret. Everyone knows it. But most people are still using ChatGPT as if they are learners. And maybe you are a learner and you're not very familiar with how to write better prompts. Well, in this video, I'll be sharing with you 6 rules to level up your ChatGPT prompts. And when I talk about prompt, which is actually called prompt engineering, it's a new and emerging field. Think of it like computer programming. And people who are able to write better prompts are able to get more out of ChatGPT and this massive technology that we have. So I'm going to be sharing with you how you can start thinking about prompts so that you can maximize and take advantage of prompts so you can obviously get the most out of this amazing technology. So let's dive in and I'll show you some of those things. But before we do that, I want to share some quick statistics. So the global prompt engineering market is expected to surpass 4.7 billion by 2026 according to research on market.com. And as AI continues to advance, writing high quality prompts will actually become a lucrative skill, just like computer programming is today. And that's something interesting to note. And to give you some context about the importance of this, in the early days of new technologies, say think of Facebook advertising, right? People who learned how to create and launch ads for businesses, they were able to charge a premium for this skill set before everybody caught up. So now here's an opportunity for you to learn how to use a high value skill to generate revenue, wealth, money for yourself, and to even build a business for yourself. So that's just some preface to help you understand the reason why understanding prompt engineering is very, very important. So without further ado, let's dive into these fundamental rules for how to use prompts. So the first rule is to keep instructions at the beginning of your prompt and to use hashtags or the columns to separate instructions. So use hashtags or apostrophes to separate instructions or context. So here's an example of a bad example and a good example. So for example, most people, if they are writing prompts, they will just give the instructions and say rewrite a text below in more engaging language, and then they'll put in their inputs here. But that's actually not the best way to write a prompt so that the GPT understand what you're trying to do. Here's the better way to write the prompt. So rewrite the text below in more engaging language, and then you give it the text and then put your input in between these apostrophe marks. And this is a better way to write a prompt so that the computer, so that GPT understand the differences between between your instructions and the context of the instructions. And that's a much better way to get better outputs. So that's number one. Number two is to be specific and detailed about the desired context, outcome, length, format, and style you want. So here's 2 prompts you can write. This one is obviously very, very bad. I mean, it will still give you a result, but you won't get as good of a result. So if you say write a short story for kids, well, it's gonna write some type of story, but that might not be anything close to what you were imagining or thinking. So again, when you think about prompts, the better your prompts, the better the outcome. So you can write something like this that is specific, detailed, and provides more context about the outcome, the length, the format, and the style you want. So write a funny soccer story for kids that teaches the kid that persistence is key for success in the style of Rowling. So this is like J.K. Rowling, right? So you're giving it something more specific, and again, for you to get better outcome, you need to be able to give it better input, and that's just the name of the game here. So that's something to keep attention and pay mind to. The third rule is to give examples of the desired output format. So sometimes ChatGPT works better when you give it an example and you say, here's kind of what I'm thinking, and here's the data. Turn this data into this example I've given to you. So just like when maybe if you learn how to play a game and you watch somebody already play that game and go through some of those levels, and then you can then reverse engineer what they've done and do that for yourself. That can apply to any skill, copywriting, acting, any skill, right? So that's exactly what you can do with ChatGPT, where you're giving it examples of your desired outcome, and then you're asking it to give you to basically work the data you're giving it so it looks like the outcome that the example of the outcome you're giving it. So here is like again 2 ways to do this. So the wrong way is to say extract house pricing data from the following text, and then you give it the instructions. You can instead you can say something like extract house pricing data from the following text, and this is a desired format that I want. So you give the desired format, and then you give it the instructions and and the data that you wanted to extract the price data from. So if that makes sense, that's kind of how you should be thinking of prompts, especially when you're doing something more complicated, or when you're trying to work with numbers or tables and stuff like that. You want to give it your desired format and then ask GPT to reverse engineer the process to work on the data sets you've given it. So that's another way to think about prompts. So let's talk about rule 4. First, try without examples, then try giving some examples. So essentially in this example here, we say extract brand names from the text below, and then we give it a text and then ask it to extract the brand names. And then we take that example. We then take this prompt and then we improve upon it by actually giving examples. And the beauty here is that GPT-4 has this ability, or GPT 3.5 or 4.0 has the ability to understand context, which means it can understand conversations from before, and that is basically what you're leveraging here, so that it can come up with better results for you by giving it without example first and then try giving some examples. Now of course this doesn't work in every scenario, but this is in something like this can absolutely work as well. Fine tune if rule 4 doesn't work. So you can do this by training ChatGPT on some more examples. ChatGPT can intuitively generate possible completions from a few learnings, and this is known as future learning. So ChatGPT is actually very, very smart when you train it by giving it an outcome that you're desiring, which is like an example. It's like, hey, this is what I'm actually looking for, this is the end result, this is the end goal, and then you're then telling it to reverse engineer itself to learn what that end goal is, and then use that on new data you're giving to a new request. So that's obviously a great way of utilizing ChatGPT, is by having it train with some examples. And there are way more complicated ways you can do this, but of course you can do this in a very, very simple format as well. Rule 6 is to use leading words to nudge ChatGPT towards a pattern. So you can, and this applies when you're writing code, when you're asking ChatGPT to generate code for you. So you can say, write a Python function that plots my net worth over 10 years for different inputs on the initial investment and given ROI. Now it's probably going to write the function for you, the Python function. It will write a Python function for you, but the problem is that it's not going to write it in a properly formatted way when you write programming codes and you write programming languages. So instead, what you can do is you can give it indication of how you want the programming language or code to be written. So when you write code, for example, in Python, this hashtag means it's like a comment, right? Where you're telling the programmer or whoever it is that's reading the code, this is what I'm thinking while I'm writing the code. It's called commenting in the world of programming. So here we wrote the comment, Python function that plots net worth over 10 years for different inputs on the initial investments and a given ROI. And then you go import matplotlib. So this is basically the library that will help you, carry out this function. And then you even define a function that will start to do this. Now what you're doing here is you are using leading words to nudge ChatGPT towards a pattern. And what it's going to do here is that in the future code that it writes, it's going to actually use and continue with the same format that you've given it and started with. And that's basically the idea here. This is mostly applicable when you're writing code or when you're trying to write something standardized. You want to give it some heads up of, hey, this is what I'm expecting, and then it's going to take that data and then run with it. Those are, and this is actually another bonus I have for you here. Let ChatGPT design the optimal prompt for you. And this is one of my favorite ways to use ChatGPT. And you can actually have ChatGPT create the optimal prompt for you to do whatever task you want to do. So if you're not very good at prompt engineering and you're like, I don't even understand how to think about prompts, it's just like very too logical and your brain doesn't work that way, that's okay. You can actually ask ChatGPT to create a prompt for you. And here's an example of how to position that. You're a robot for creating prompts. You need to gather information about the user's goal, examples of preferred outputs, and any relevant contextual information. The prompt should contain all the necessary information provided to you. Ask the user more questions until you're sure you can create an optimal prompt, and then your answer should be clearly formatted and optimized for ChatGPT interactions. Be sure to start by asking the user about the goals, the desired outcomes, and any additional information you may need. So this is an example perfect prompt that you can actually use. So maybe you might want to screenshot this for yourself so that you can use this to create prompts for your future needs if you're not quite sure how to write the prompt. So it's a pretty cool way. It's almost like a hack where if you're not sure how to write a prompt, you ask ChatGPT to help you create a prompt that it needs to create what you want, which is pretty mind-blowing. So many ways we can use ChatGPT, but I hope you found value in these 6 rules of how to use ChatGPT, how to create better prompts so you can better leverage the amazing technology of GPT, whether that's GPT 3.5 or GPT or GPT 4.0. Again, my name is David. I run a marketing agency where we use AI and a whole bunch of other technologies to generate leads for our clients. I create a lot of videos around some of my learnings, some of my experiments, and things that I think could be of benefit and value to you, especially for your marketing as an online business owner. If you like this video, like and share with people in your network that you think could benefit from it. And of course, if you have any questions, put some comments and I will answer your questions directly. And if you want to keep seeing content like this, then obviously subscribe, and I post 2 to 3 videos every week like this for your consumption. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.